Welcome back, dear viewers, to another deep dive into the heart of Port Charles. We are thrilled to share this journey with you as we explore the complex webs of family, loyalty, and legacy that make our beloved show so enduringly captivating. As a longtime viewer and passionate fan of General Hospital, I have always found myself deeply invested in the generational shifts that occur within Port Charles. Watching the children of our favorite legacy characters grow, stumble, and ultimately face the very same moral dilemmas as their parents is one of the most rewarding aspects of following this show for so many years. Right now, we are witnessing a truly explosive storyline unfolding among the younger set, specifically involving Danny, Rocco, and Charlotte. This is not just a simple tale of teenage angst. It is a profound exploration of trauma, loyalty, and the heavy burden of carrying a famous last name in a town where danger lurks around every corner. The writers are weaving a complex tapestry that honors the rich history of the show while pushing these young characters into dark, uncharted territories. It is a masterclass in character development, and I am entirely captivated by the emotional depths we are currently exploring on screen. The absolute epicenter of this current dramatic earthquake is the shocking revelation that Jason Morgan has taken the fall for a crime committed by young Rocco. When the truth emerged that Rocco was the one who actually pulled the trigger and shot Ross Cullum in a desperate bid to save Jason's life, my heart absolutely broke for the boy. Rocco, the son of Dante and Lulu, has always been portrayed as a relatively grounded child, but the sheer terror of seeing Jason in mortal danger pushed him to commit an act of extreme violence. Jason, operating on his deeply ingrained code of honor and his fierce protective instinct toward Dante's son, immediately stepped in to take the blame. For Jason, this was likely a reflex, a necessary sacrifice to prevent a young boy's life from being destroyed by the criminal justice system and the guilt of attempted murder. But we must ask ourselves, is Jason's sacrifice truly helping Rocco, or is it merely delaying the inevitable psychological fallout that comes from pulling a trigger? This brings us to the utterly heartbreaking reaction of Danny, Jason's own flesh and blood. When Danny discovered that his father had willingly confessed to a crime he did not commit, and worse, that he did it to protect Rocco, the betrayal in Danny's eyes was palpable. As a viewer who has watched Danny long for a stable, present father his entire life, I completely understand his incandescent rage. Danny is not just angry about the legal ramifications, he is fundamentally wounded by the perceived hierarchy of Jason's affections. In Danny's mind, his father is once again choosing someone else, prioritizing the safety of another man's son over his own family's peace of mind. This is a brilliant, albeit painful, narrative choice by the writers. It highlights the generational trauma inflicted by Jason's lifestyle. Danny's fury is the culmination of years of abandonment issues bubbling to the surface, and it is setting the stage for a bitter, deeply personal feud between these two teenagers. The brewing animosity between Danny and Rocco is perhaps one of the most compelling conflicts we have seen in the younger cast in years. This is not a petty squabble over a locker or a passing grade. This is a foundational rupture based on life or death stakes. Faye looks at Rocco and sees the boy who stole his father's freedom, while Rocco looks at Danny through a lens of crushing guilt and defensive pride. Rocco's decision to finally confess to shooting Cullum to save Jason is a massive turning point. It shows that Rocco possesses his father Dante's moral compass, unable to let an innocent man, even a hardened enforcer like Jason, take the fall for his actions. Yet, this confession does not magically erase Danny's anger. If anything, it complicates the dynamic further, because now Danny must grapple with the reality that Rocco saved his father's life, even as that very act threatens to tear their lives apart. It is a beautifully messy, emotionally charged situation that has me glued to the screen every single afternoon. Adding an entirely new layer of complexity to this teenage powder keg is the intense, palpable tension between Jason and Britt Westbourne. As someone who has championed her character's growth for years, I was utterly floored by the recent revelation regarding her health. Learning that her Huntington's disease diagnosis was nothing more than a cruel, elaborate fake orchestrated by Cullum and Jen Sidwell is a monumental twist. Britt has been living under a death sentence, making choices and guarding her heart based on the belief that her time was painfully short. Now she has been handed a miraculous second chance at life, a renewed lease that completely alters her trajectory. She suddenly has a future, and it is abundantly clear that she wants to explore that future with Jason. However, just as the clouds part for Britt, she finds herself dragged directly into the chaotic storm of Jason's unwavering need to protect Rocco and Danny. The dynamic between Britt and Jason right now is a fascinating study in contrasting philosophies of protection. Britt, with her medical background and her own history of overcoming toxic family legacies, wants to protect the boys by addressing the trauma head on. She sees the psychological damage this secret is inflicting on both Rocco and Danny, and she recognizes that Jason's instinct to cover things up is only breeding more resentment and danger. Jason, conversely, only knows one way to protect those he cares about, by throwing himself on the grenade. I find myself vigorously nodding along with Britt's frustrations. She loves Jason, but she is terrified of watching him sacrifice his freedom and their potential future for a misguided sense of duty. The writers are utilizing this conflict to brilliantly highlight the fundamental differences between Britt and Jason, forcing them to navigate a minefield where the lives and souls of two teenage boys are the ultimate collateral damage. I must take a moment to applaud the sheer irony and tragedy of the timing here. Just as Jocelyn Jacks manages to spin a web of lies regarding the death of Cassius Faison, falsely painting him as Sidwell's primary ally instead of Cullum's to secure Jason and Valentine's release from WSB custody, Jason immediately plunges himself back into legal jeopardy for Rocco. It is almost Shakespearean in its tragic cyclicality. Jason is finally free, Britt is finally healthy, and the universe seems primed to allow them a moment of happiness. Yet, the gravitational pull of Port Charles's underworld and Jason's inescapable role as the town's eternal savior yanks him right back into the abyss. It is incredibly frustrating as a fan who wants to see Jason and Britt find some semblance of peace, but from a critical standpoint, it is magnificent television. It underscores the undeniable truth that in General Hospital, the past is never truly buried, and the consequences of violence always demand a heavy toll. As if the volatile mix of Danny, Rocco, Jason, and Britt were not enough to sustain our dramatic appetites, the writers have brilliantly injected Charlotte Cassadine into the very center of this explosive narrative. Charlotte is a character I have always found fascinating. She possesses the vulnerability of her mother, Lulu, combined with the dangerous, manipulative edge of her father, Valentine. Right now, Charlotte's own life is a chaotic mess. With her father secretly hiding out at Carly's house and her mother, Lulu, practically vibrating with rage over the deception, Charlotte is a young girl desperately seeking an anchor in a turbulent sea. Naturally, she gravitates toward the intense, swirling drama surrounding Danny and Rocco. Her involvement is the match that threatens to ignite this entire powder keg, turning a two-sided feud into a complex, unpredictable triangle of teenage angst, loyalty, and burgeoning romance. The way Charlotte interacts with both Danny and Rocco is a masterclass in subtle manipulation and genuine teenage confusion. Does she lean toward Danny, feeding off his dark, brooding anger and his sense of alienation? Or does she find herself drawn to Rocco, the boy burdened by a terrible secret and a desperate need for redemption? Charlotte's presence acts as a catalyst, amplifying the existing animosity between the two boys. Every look, every whispered conversation, and every perceived slight is magnified 100-fold when Charlotte is in the room. I firmly believe that the writers are setting up a scenario where Charlotte will ultimately hold the power to either diffuse this situation or blow it completely out of proportion. Given her Cassadine heritage, I cannot help but fear it will be the latter. It is thrilling to watch these young actors tackle such heavy, nuanced material, proving that the future of General Hospital is in incredibly capable hands. We also cannot ignore the massive ripple effects this storyline will have on the broader canvas of Port Charles. Consider Lulu Spencer. We already know from the upcoming timeline that Lulu is going to unleash her righteous fury upon Carly for hiding Valentin and facilitating Charlotte's visits. Lulu is a mother fiercely protective of her children. When she inevitably discovers that her son Rocco shot a man and that Jason Morgan, a man intrinsically linked to the mob violence that has plagued her family for decades, is involved in a massive cover-up, Lulu's reaction will be nothing short of nuclear. The intersecting storylines here are a testament to meticulous planning by the writing team. The tension between Lulu, Carly, Valentin, and Jason will create a perfect storm of adult conflict that perfectly mirrors the teenage chaos unfolding below it. It is this intricate layering of narrative that keeps us, the longtime viewers, coming back day after day to see how these pieces fall. Furthermore, I find myself deeply intrigued by the timeline's hint that Jason might be reconsidering his place within Sonny Corinthos' organization. As Jason settles back into life in Port Charles, particularly around his highly anticipated official return on July 13th, we are promised a new perspective from our favorite enforcer. Could this harrowing ordeal with Danny and Rocco be the catalyst for Jason's ultimate departure from the mob life? Watching his own son's heart break and seeing Dante's son nearly destroyed by the violence that surrounds them might finally be the wake-up call Jason needs. He has always justified his lifestyle by claiming he protects people. But this situation proves that his mere presence is a danger to the children he loves. If the writers truly follow through on this premise, having Jason walk away from Sonny's syndicate to save Danny's soul and build a life with a cured Brit, it would be one of the most monumental character shifts in the history of daytime television. Of course, leaving the mob is never as simple as handing in a resignation letter. Sonny is currently consumed with his own vendettas, employing Brick to sabotage Valentine and Carly's romance. If Jason attempts to pull away just as Sonny is ramping up his aggressive tactics, the fallout between these two lifelong friends could be catastrophic. And let us not forget the looming threats of Jack Brennan pressuring Drew and the mysterious figures from Ethan Lovett's past. Port Charles is currently a powder keg of unresolved tensions and dangerous secrets. Yet, amidst all this adult machination, it is the raw, unfiltered emotion of Danny, Rocco, and Charlotte that commands my utmost attention. They are the emotional core of the show right now, the tragic inheritors of a legacy built on blood and secrets. The writers have successfully made us care deeply about the next generation, proving that the heart of General Hospital beats as strongly today as it did decades ago.